Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited just to be here this afternoon and introduce this conversation that we're going to have this afternoon with colleagues and friends of ours who are doing amazing work. We are just excited to have them to come and share with us so that we can learn from the things that they are doing and learn how we can put our hands to the plow and help do the work. So welcome to Massachusetts Council of Churches. We're a statewide network. We work throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We often say we know at least one clergy person or church in every city and community in the Commonwealth, and that's 351 places. We know someone that we can connect you to, and so we work to connect churches together to do the work that God has called the church to do. So we're gathered here and we're hoping to learn from one another, to be informed, and how we can also support what God is up to and how we can pray and amplify the work of those who are here to share with us on this afternoon. Our pastor colleagues are here with us that have learned a lot. They're doing the work and we want to learn from them. I just want to first start off by asking our colleagues who are here, if they can introduce, you can introduce yourself and tell us where you're coming from. And we can start with Pastor Kathleen Baker.
Hi, I'm Reverend Kathleen Baker. I am the minister of the First Congregational Church of West Tisbury on Martha's Vineyard. And it is an honor to be with you all today for this conversation. I feel like I have so much to learn from you, and I'm looking forward to working together going forward.
Pastor Dearford.
Thank you so much, Reverend Young. Thank you so much, Reverend Laura. My name is Pastor Geoffrey Fleurissin, but namely known in my community as Pastor Kiki, founder of Total Health Christian Ministries. We're located right in Greater Boston, serving as the liaison for the Haitian Pastors Association of New England, and also working closely with Immigrant Family Services Institute, the agency that is assisting, supporting, and connecting the Haitian migrants. Great to be with you again.
Thank you. And Reverend Newton.
Hello, I'm Reverend Janet Newton. I serve the Unitarian Universalist Society of Martha's Vineyard, and I had intended to be sitting next to Kathleen in her office, but we just got off a different call. So I'm in a different space. I'm also, like her, just very eager to, well, grateful to be part of the conversation and eager to learn and also to continue future work.
Thank you all for being here. And we have named this Shelter Thy Neighbor, Martha's Vineyard, and the Mainland Migrant Crisis. We're always excited to have our executive director here with us, the Reverend Laura Everett, and she's going to come and bring some words, and then we're going to get into the conversation. Reverend Laura.
Thank you, Reverend Young. What a joy to be with these colleagues today, and my gratitude for the time that you all who are watching us and you who have given your time. So we're calling this a crisis. The colleagues who are with us from the Vineyard, our colleagues from the Mainland, we're calling this a crisis because the Martha's Vineyard experience was a profound crisis, right? We saw nearly 50 people all at once, but at the same time, there's a crisis that predates that in some ways has been slow moving, but less visible. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to have a conversation across oceans, across islands, across borders, and see if we can use this opportunity to talk about crises that are visible and some crises that are less visible. And so I want to start with the Martha's Vineyard clergy, Reverend Baker, Reverend Newton, to tell us, what did you experience in this crisis that started on Wednesday, September 22nd? Can you tell us about your experience? And then we're going to move to Pastor Fleurissin.
I believe it was September 15th.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Yeah. So how did you find out about this experience?
So it was just before 5 o'clock, and I had friends arriving, house guests arriving at the airport at 4:45. So I had arranged for my sister, who works at Martha's Vineyard Community Services, to pick up my daughter at 5 o'clock from the high school, which is across the street. And at that point, I talked to my sister, made sure everything was on track just around 5 as she got off work. And she said there's been 2 plane loads of Venezuelan migrants who have arrived on the island, and they were just deposited in the parking lot of community services. So I'm going to pick up your daughter, but then I've got to get back to the high school where everyone is now gathered. And so I looked at my phone, I realized I had all these calls from Father Chip Seedale, who is the rector of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. So I started putting things together pretty quickly and said to my daughter, we're actually going to go to the high school. You're going to get picked up. You're going to have a snack. You're going to put on your sneakers, and then we're going back to the high school. And that's where we sort of got pulled into the relief work. And I could tell you more about what happened from there. So at that point, when I arrived at the high school, the group was having a snack in the cafeteria, and school buses had been made available that were driving them over to St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. This is a church that we've partnered with for years in providing emergency winter shelter. And so what happened was our pop-up winter shelter just got kicked into gear a little bit earlier, and we all knew what to do. And that was a pretty miraculous feeling to have so many people collaborate so quickly and so well.
I think that's one of the most important parts of the story that folks off island can take from this is you all had pre-existing relationships. You had relationships with your municipality, with one another through the Martha's Vineyard Interfaith Clergy Association, and you had an infrastructure in place, maybe not for 50 new migrants, but you had a feeding program, a shelter program. You had people that were quarried, pre-approved. You had cots available. Maybe you didn't have all of the Spanish speakers you needed, but you had infrastructure in place. And Reverend Newton, you just started as the pastor of this church on September 1. And now by September 15th, you have your community asking you to lead this, and your new colleagues sweeping you into this work. What was it like to come into a pre-existing network of colleagues and infrastructure for this response to what was an immediate crisis?
Well, I would say that, so I did start on the 1st of September, but I had prior knowledge of the Vineyard. And I have to say that while I agree that St. Andrew's, we have this night shelter program that has been in place. It hasn't been in place for years. It has been in place in the last 10, not even, I think it started in 2016 really. So we actually, the Island Clergy Association came together and recognized this need and started to put into place things because we did not have the social services that exist in other places. And so I think the strength of our Interfaith Clergy Association allowed us to start to chip away at problems so that we could come into, respond quickly to this. If there had been multiple planes continuing to come, as was at one point thought, I think it really would have tested our capacities much more than this was. We were able to handle this. But I also think that it speaks to how much faith we place in each other across and despite theological difference to get work done that needs to be done for the good of our community, recognizing that community is, it takes all of us, right? Mm-hmm. So we recognize that despite theological difference.
And I'm glad you said that, Reverend Newton. That's one of the key things that we try to hold here at Massachusetts Council of Churches. Some of you all know this, and for those who don't, we serve 18 different denominations. Mm-hmm. And so we have a very diverse theological perspective, but we believe that community holds us together. Jesus holds us together. And in saying that, when you read the Boston Globe or you hear the news stories, you hear how these churches on Martha's Vineyard came together to serve Venezuelan migrants. Was there any type of prior knowledge from elected officials that these folks are on their way?
No.
You all are just as surprised as we were when we began to read the headlines, that we had folks who were flying in, and it was unbeknownst to everyone who was on the island.
Right. You know, it's been an especially bonding experience for us on the island with the group of Venezuelans that came, because we both were duped together. We both at the same time were learning, like, oh, what has just happened to us? Who just did this to us? And so we feel very close, and we're trying to figure out a way that we can have a gathering where some of these first responder volunteers and the group can get together again, because it was very upsetting. And the despair in the faces of our Venezuelan friends when they realized that they arrived somewhere that wasn't expecting them and that didn't have the services they needed. You know, we could provide food and housing, but we didn't have like a stable of immigration lawyers, or, you know, there was an ocean between them and their court dates, and maybe even an ocean and several plane rides to where they should be next, you know? So it was a crisis, even though we were ready. As Janet loves to say, we were prepared, but we had no warning.
But I would say too that even though we were surprised, because the stunt itself invited media, we actually got more warning than did people in Boston, for the people who have been arriving into those communities, because ours was televised, and the same has not been true of other communities that have been receiving refugees throughout this time. And I think that makes a huge difference, that we didn't get warned, except for that because the media showed up, we knew there was something happening. And I don't think that is necessarily true in terms of how quickly community services and other places could respond if they did not receive the televised experience.
I just want to ask a follow-up question, because I think things can be, people can be misinformed because of what we've seen and what we've heard and what we've read. You said that both groups were duped. And so was there a place that they were being told they were supposed to go and they just kind of ended up in Martha's Vineyard? Or, you know, what happened? Because some people are saying that, oh, they knew they were going, and you all just, you know, told us, and from, I'm sure, firsthand experience, that you said that, you know, both groups were duped.
Well, it was because they were told they were going to Massachusetts. They did have a very like cartoon-like map of the United States that showed, you know, the direction of their flight. And it did say Martha's Vineyard, but they were not informed that it was an island. It wasn't clear to them. It was not clear to them exactly where they were going. And they were told that, you know, by taking this flight, there would be jobs waiting for them and services waiting for them. This was the plan. But there really wasn't a plan. So that's where I think there was misinformation. Yeah. And seeing the anxiety in people's faces especially when they realized they were on an island, that they couldn't get to the places they wanted to get to, whether it was Boston or New York or, you know, a court date, that there was a lot of anxiety.
Okay. Now I also want to follow up too, because it's Martha's Vineyard, right? I was at a conference in Virginia, and this one lady came up to me. She said, "People don't go to Martha's Vineyard like that, do they?" And I said, "Yeah, they do." Because it's kind of this, I want to say this myth for other folks that may not be in the Commonwealth or in New England, it's almost as if, it's kind of this untouchable, mystic, wealthy island where people who have a lot of money and have wealth, that's where they go to relax. And in saying that, what was it like in the area, in the community, when these Venezuelan migrants are getting off their airplane and you all are trying to help them? Did you all feel pressure from both sides of people who are saying, why are they here? They're not supposed to be here. This is our island. Or was it this kind of feel-good story that we're reading in the newspaper?
Janet, do you want to take that one? I have a lot to say about it, but I want to give Janet a chance to talk.
Probably both do, but the biggest misconception that people have about the Vineyard is that it is homogeneously wealthy, and that it is a playground for the elite, and that we would not have been able to respond in the way we did if that was true. That's just, it's sort of a paradox of the, what it looks like to be here. There is a year-round community here that is one step above the poverty line. There is a year-round community here that exists to support people who come in the summertime, and have had to figure out how to take care of one another. And that includes people who unexpectedly arrive on our doorstep. We have an open door. We have an orientation towards hospitality because of how the Vineyard makes its money, but the year-round residents. But I think that we've also always had to be able to give each other our hands and our shoulders, and support each other. Mm-hmm. So that one of the hardest things for me was kind of playing whack-a-mole with the misinformation and the misconceptions that a lot of people had, including my colleagues who have never been here and didn't understand. My language about it is that it was a mistake to use us as a symbol and not realize that we were a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think somewhere like 20% of the island is foreign born, and the public school population is between 30 and 40% Brazilian. So this is an immigrant community. It's not surprising for us to have immigrant individuals and families arrive here and to welcome them. That's what we do.
Thank you for explaining that to all of us, especially those who are on the mainland and people that may be watching all across the world. Reverend Laura?
I think that's a great way of thinking about economic difference and welcome as we think about an unfolding, long emerging crisis with a local Haitian population that has long been practicing hospitality, and a city like Boston that has a high level of economic inequality. Pastor Kiki and I spent Friday afternoon together at Immigrant Family Services Institute, and we were remembering that it was back last September that we were talking about a wave of newer migrants from Haiti to Boston. And so it's been over a year that there has been an increase in new migrants. And so Pastor Floresan, I'm wondering, how do you describe to people what you have described as a migrant crisis of people of Haitian descent coming to Boston at this moment?
Again, thank you so much, Reverend Laura, and just for this discussion. And I definitely echo the perspective of Reverend Baker and Reverend Newton regarding the situation in Martha's Vineyards, whereas we did not know that close to 30% of them are Brazilians. They are immigrant communities. Thank you for this really true and correct information. And then thank you, Reverend Young, when you said that you're serving many dozens of denominations, but we are serving one God. We are God's children, created at His image through His likeness, and then therefore, just we feel the same pain that other migrants are facing. And then I am glad that Reverend Baker mentioned that those families were deposited to them without no prior knowledge. But for us as Haitians, we are celebrating again 1 year anniversary of the Del Rio saga. This is how I called it. Del Rio, the Del Rio Bridge from Texas last year. So we've seen just thousands of Haitian migrants crossed over Del Rio Bridge in search of better life, basically. They fled turmoil, evil situations to migrate to the Central American countries, and then facing the same dire challenges again in the Central American countries. And then the sole reason they crossed over, they spent almost 9 months to a year traveling through all the countries in Central America to arrive there. They've known so many evils and then traumatic situations. They've seen death. Some of them lost their children on their way, family members beaten, raped, all the situations. So they arrive here, so expecting to get a much better, friendly welcome. But that wasn't the case. So fast forward, you have seen what happened. And since then, they continue to arrive on a daily basis. That made the news again last year because it was forthcoming. But after that, we have not definitely seen that appear again, talked on our cable news, except those families keep continuing to arriving. But again, for the past 3 months, starting in June, again, that's when we have seen the biggest influx of Haitian migrants arriving within the greater Boston. And the reason it makes so much noise at this point is because those families arrive through the major Boston hospitals. Just give you an example. Back in August alone, Boston Medical Center received 106 families, not individuals. 106 families made up of 170 kids. So they brought alongside of them their children as long as their luggages. The maternity had almost 7 families giving birth at one point. So then they were so amazed, again, that's what I would say, to see overwhelmed by those families. They didn't know exactly what to do, whether to close the emergency room. They can't do that because families continue to be arriving. So they had to call the state of Massachusetts, the executive office of services. And also they have to call us, which is Immigrant Family Services Institute. That agency, as I said, were able last year to tackle this immigrant families issues, providing for them all type of services from A to Z. Okay, social, emotional service, legal as well, connecting them with all the different resources. Just to give you a little background, as you know, so throughout the crisis, Reverend Laura knows that so many entities, as well as the faith-based clergy entities came together and said, we need to assist in those people, okay? And the fact that the state listened and then brought a resolution and added toward the budget amendment $8 million to help those families. But there were 1,600 people already arrived for this $8 million. But after that, again, we got close to 3,500 more who arrived. So I was telling our Reverend Laura last Friday, from June to August, we got 2,100 individuals came into our doors for assistance and help. So this is just to give you an idea of the scope of the situation we faced. I know that it's a crisis, but for us, it's an opportunity. And that's what the Bible says, Galatians 6:9. Whenever we have an opportunity, this is the opportunity to have to assist and support those Haitian families. Though we have not seen that broadcasted throughout the big network situations. We had a conversation with Channel 4, and I invited them to come inside the center to see exactly the many families, 50, 60 families at a time, just showed up to our doors, sitting in there and hoping to get assistance. So this is where we are in that effect.
I wonder if our, so we're starting to get a sense of the scope of the problem, right? Like that we both have these discrete events that are, let's call it what it is, political stunts, right? An airplane full of migrants that are sent to Martha's Vineyard. But then we have these longer, growing, major 2,100 migrants over 3 months that are coming to emergency rooms with their luggage because they have nowhere else to go. I'm wondering, from our Martha's Vineyard clergy, what do you want to know from Pastor Florissant about what he and his other Haitian clergy colleagues are experiencing and needing as well too? Reverend Baker.
One of the questions I've had is certainly the more recent arrivals that you've seen, June, July, and August. Do you have a sense that these folks have been part of the bus loads coming up and arriving in DC or New York, and then they're making their way to Boston? Or are these folks that have come directly to Boston somehow in a coordinated way?
It's a great question, and we're trying to find out how many of those migrants that we have coming from either bus load from Texas to New York or to Washington, D.C. But few families basically made their way in, drop off in New York. And, you know, Massachusetts has been the hub of the third largest Haitian population. Just they know exactly how we could assist them. And they made their way here, but we couldn't pinpoint what's the percentage of those who were part of the bus loads coming from Texas. But what we have seen happening, it's from Texas to Logan Airport, either to Boston Medical Center, to Mass General Hospital, to Children's Hospital, to Brigham and Women, and then to us. And this is basically how they have been arriving here with the words that got spread around.
Right. Well, thank God for the work you're doing at IFSI. You know, I'm, just looking at how we're sort of piecing this together right now on the Cape. You know, to have that infrastructure. I mean, incredibly taxed, right? And you're having to draw on every bit of resource you have, but at least there's this program. I'm grateful for you that you're there and that your leadership is part of that work.
And then let me just also add, again, for many of you who are watching via Facebook, just regarding this, well, the state has been instrumental in helping, assisting you. They gave you $8 million, but understand that $8 million were earmarked for 1,600 people back in March. Understand that, back in March, that's what this $8 million has been earmarked for that. But since then, as I told you, within 3 months, we got 2,100. We don't have the data yet for September. And we have, as Reverend Laura, we went there, we have seen 50 to 60 people arriving on a daily basis in the centers, and they're still going to the hospitals as well. So up to now, we are negotiating with the state to see how best we could accommodate those families who just arrived. So they're working on a comprehensive plans so that they can do, but still they cannot come up with a comprehensive plan just to help those families. That's why they're scattered all over Massachusetts. We went to Springfield last week. We had close to 36 families in 3 different hotels in Springfield. We went to Worcester the prior week. We had 90 families located in hotels in Worcester. As I said, this is the crisis that we are facing just throughout Massachusetts.
Can I ask if you are, I mean, I know that the state you've been heavily reliant upon the state's not enough earmarked funds. And we know that border states receive federal funds along with state funding for dealing with immigration. Has there been federal support within your community or for your work as well, or not?
Unfortunately, so there is no federal funding coming up. So we are spoken, basically, we have been spoken to our congressional representative, again regarding that, but still that has not been materialized yet. We're supposed to have a conversation with members of our 2 senators this week, again regarding the situations, working with we have, we thank God, we have Congressman Presley, who is the chair of the Haiti caucus in Congress, very instrumental, vocal as well regarding the Haitian migrants situations. But this is talks and negotiations. Have not seen that again materialize from the federal government. That's what we always called upon the municipal officials to coordinate how best they could assist us in that situation, and also as well with the philanthropist world. We have not seen them come forward and help out in this crisis. Maybe they thought that the problem has been resolved since they have not seen it talked too much, broadcasted too much on cable news, but what definitely to raise that situation, raise the concerns that we have. We have not seen the philanthropist world come in also and help to our situation.
Okay. Wow. Reverend Florison, you said a whole lot. Pastor Kiki, you said a whole lot. As African-American male, the picture that stays in my head is seeing the Haitian men running from security on horseback. It draws me close to African Americans who I'm from the South, and hearing the stories of having to run from security or police. It draws me to those similar stories, and I just wonder for you, how have you all been dealing with that particular trauma from people that gets off of an airplane or a bus and they're just going to a hospital because they've been told that this is a safe place to go, right? Similar to enslaved folks who ended up at the White House because they were told that this is the place where freedom is. You can experience freedom here. How are you dealing with that type of trauma? And then the second question I'm going to ask is, you talked about we have Haitian brothers and sisters in Springfield and in Worcester, Brockton, Lowell. Where are they finding housing? I mean, people who are here without any issues with immigration laws or services, who are born and raised here, are just finding it hard to get rent a house or even buy a house. Where are you all finding places for them to stay?
Well, as you know, that's the limitation of 3. It's just God's compassion are new daily. It's every day. So they were able just to face that, to go back to Haiti. What's been happening to Haiti. 2010, we have the earthquake. Then we have the cholera outbreak. 2016, we have the storms that devastated Haiti. Hurricane Matthew. The southern peninsula has been devastated and never been definitely recuperated again. And since after that, we had another earthquake in the same southern peninsula. Haiti devastated Haiti again. Then we have the assassination of Haiti president in his bedroom. And since then, rampant kidnappings have been taking place, and those people have to flee for their lives. That's why they ended up more likely into the Central American countries so that they could make it to the border of Mexico. This is just, I would say, a combination of the situations after situations that plague into the island of Haiti. As you stated back, Doug, were the first black slave successful revolution, as you know, since 1803, 1804. But since then, we are paying a great deal for that revolution, for a great deal of that successful revolution, because France gave us an indemnity for $21 billion. And then when US went to Haiti in 1915, they enforced that Haiti pay interest on that money. That's crippled the whole economy of Haiti. So no wonder why people ask why Haiti is so poor. Understand that. So Haitians can't really remain in Haiti. And actually, as we speak, we still have massive demonstrations of the dire situations Haitians are facing in their home country. So that's why they cannot stay there. That's why they migrated here to that effect. And I said that this is an opportunity the US had, basically because we have been a great friend. We fought at Savannah, Georgia, Haitian blood shed on US soil just to help America. So that's something that they should definitely understand our situations and come forward and see how best they could definitely help us out. The second question is about...
So Pastor Kiki, I hate to cut you off. I really do. But I want to make sure we capture this and understand what you're saying. And I don't want this to get lost in the conversation. You talked about a revolution that happened 1803, 1804, and what the country, the small nation of Haiti, has been made to pay, and help me to understand this too, to France, and then what the United States of America also did in, I would say, driving down the wealth of the nation. Can you really make sure that we get that? Because I think sometimes we don't know that history. I'll say that. Sometimes I don't think America knows that particular part of Haiti's history. What we see sometimes are people that are coming over and, they dealing, and I'm just going to be honest, they're dealing with all sorts of spirits, right? Voodoo, and that's the reason why they're poor, and that's the reason why they're going through all this. God has cursed them, and they don't know what they're doing. They can't organize their own nation. That's the reason why they're going through what they're going through. But I want you to really give us that again so we can understand the plight of what the people have been dealing with for centuries now.
This is systemic situations. Again, when I'm talking about that, understand a poor nation became independent. Basically, all the superpower removed, all the assistance to that poor nation. Okay, since 1804, I think it was about close to 1865 when United States recognized Haiti independence. Okay, and then for France to recognize Haiti independence, we must pay. If you saw that for the past 2 months, that article from New York Times describing exactly just the plight of the Haitian community, what it had done to Haitian economy to pay that. They could not pay it. Again, they had to borrow money to pay interest on that. And then it took some centuries, 1823, before they finished paying, okay, that indemnity, okay, just to France. So you can understand exactly how critical it is for a poor nation like that become independent. Haiti was the most flourishing colony for France, for Britain, for Spain, because that's what it was for France. And since we became independent, we lost all the assistance and support we definitely could do. So our ancestors, our forefathers have to fight very hard to maintain a level of the economy for the constituents of Haiti. So that's what we have seen happening. Is a systemic that's happened. That's the disparities that Haitians are facing, meaning for so many years, and they are still struggling, okay, to make ends meet. And despite that, we got the natural disasters, okay, dumped onto us again, just to face that and not having exactly the adequate governments to help. So that's what we've seen, the plight of Haiti becoming so dire at that situation.
Thank you. Now, the second question was, how are you all dealing with the trauma from people who are coming to America now?
Again, you stated the challenges, the housing challenges. As you know, housing is a challenge everywhere. Basically, you're going, especially in the greater Boston, where you know that gentrification just throughout, inequities in terms of how we tackle this inequities, housing injustice, and also besides that, immigration injustice. And that's what our people have been scattered just throughout Massachusetts in order for them to find places they could live. We called on even churches that have big halls that could definitely accommodate some of the migrants who are arriving on a daily basis. So in Worcester, we have a First Haitian Baptist Church who definitely help accommodate close to 6 and 8 families in their basement. So they will do. So we have all the Haitian pastors also part of the Haitian Fellowship Associations, lodging some of the Haitian families, but temporarily still looking for a permanent housing situations. But that definitely described to you right now the level of challenges that we are having. And then again, we need a coordinated efforts among the states, the cities, and towns to see how best we could access the families, because that has not stopped. The flow has not been stopped. We have right now that we were in contact with Haitian migrants at the borders. There is in the border of Texas called Tapachula, close to 3,000 Haitians already waiting to be processed to arrive to the United States. So we just got to be ready, basically just to assist them. As I said, it is a crisis.
Reverend Laura?
As we're nearing the top of the hour, it would be incredibly helpful from all of the pastors who have been doing this frontline ministry to hear, we've got pastors listening, church leaders listening from across the Commonwealth on our Facebook live stream today. And I think the education that we've learned, the deep faith, the collaborative leadership that we're seeing. What do you think churches, church leaders in other parts of the Commonwealth can do to accompany new migrants well? We heard from Pastor Kiki that if you have space in your church, if you have an extra apartment, an extra room, there is a crisis happening right now. And we know that there is a communal responsibility that is absolutely imperative of our state and municipal leadership. And rest assured that that is something that Mass Council is pressing on, that our Haitian colleagues are pressing on, that our local leadership is pressing on, right? But there is also a call for the church. In times of crisis, this is the story of the innkeepers when Mary and Joseph are looking for shelter, right? It is the story of the Israelites. It is the story of a migrant people of faith that have our Savior who has nowhere to lay his head. And the ancestors and the saints who have gone before us in every generation. But I'm wondering from each of you, Reverend Baker, Reverend Newton, Reverend Florissant, what do you think it takes to accompany new migrants well?
Well, I want to say that it does take a whole community, that all the congregations on the island were collaborating, but we were also collaborating with nonprofits and with the police departments, the fire department, emergency services. Many, many forces were working together. And I know that kind of collaborative work is still happening on the Cape. The group moved over to Joint Base Cape Cod, and I'm aware of colleagues in the United Church of Christ who are talking to me regularly about the work they're doing volunteering at the base, some of them organizing volunteers to support the MEMA effort at the base. I have been feeling like, Martha's Vineyard has had this collective consciousness raising, and that we are ready to invite our community to be in solidarity with other communities. And we were ready in many ways, but there were other things that we could have been prepared for. And so I think that, Reverend Laura, you mentioned one, really maybe having a list of people in your congregation that speak Spanish or Haitian Creole, French Creole, right? That we have these lists of who can speak which language of different migrant communities ready. Even having hygiene kits, like many congregations are accustomed to making Church World Service hygiene kits. We could have used them. We have a smaller homeless population on the island, but we needed lots of hygiene kits. And so there are very specific things that congregations can be doing, looking at their own level of preparedness. And I am just so grateful to the Massachusetts Council of Churches for the capacity you all have for sort of harnessing us and informing us. And whatever I can do to help with that, I'm interested.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm wondering, Reverend Newton, what do you think about when you think about what it takes to accompany new migrants? Well, you all did it on a short-term basis in this moment, but I'm also wondering what you know from other experiences about long-term accompaniment.
Well, I think that one of the challenges that we face, those of us who are coming from Protestant mainline backgrounds, is that frankly, there is still a way in which othering happens within our congregations. And what does it take to accompany new migrants? Well, to acknowledge that they are not an other, that you know, all people are worthy of dignity and to be treated as people who have hopes and dreams that we want to hear about and accompany them into living them out. I think it's very easy to see it as when you talk about it as a crisis, then you're talking about something short term. And I think that that's not what we're dealing with when we're talking about people who are fleeing for their lives and losing loved ones along the way. It is much bigger than that, and it requires people who are living quasi-comfortable lives, no matter how challenging their own personal experiences may be, to put themselves into a position of empathy and to listen and to offer beyond maybe what feels comfortable initially.
Thank you, Reverend Newton. I received the challenge as well, and the correction in thinking about the reframe that I can experience something as a crisis, but for the people living it, this is their lives. A friend of mine says, you don't flee home unless home is the mouth of a snake. This is not a choice made easily. And so how do we, it's a fundamental theological, sociological, heart reorientation to not see a person as a problem to be resolved, a person to place in a house, but an individual worthy of dignity and respect who just wants peace and tranquility in their life. Worthy of that just as much as I am. Thank you. Pastor Florissant.
Well, thank you so very much for your perspective and your love, basically, toward Haitian families. I remember that's when the Rio situation occurred last year. We received just so many words of encouragement, but people dropped in and then brought tons of donations, basically just to assist those migrants. And that's what happened. We see the outpouring of love throughout many in the greater Boston and throughout that. And since then, the fact that the new wave of families' situation have not been made available, basically, to the larger networks, because families lost track of what had happened to those Haitian families. They thought everything was okay. As I said, the situation is still happening. So we still need housing accommodations. We still need legal accommodation, legal assistance, as you know, legal supports. Those families who arrive here need to be able to be assisted legally to submit their request so that they can remain in the country. So we need the assistance, again, also legal assistance and social services, as well as emotional and psychological assistance. Those families are traumatically impacted negatively by what would happen to them. And up to now, they have not been fully stabilized because they spend 1 day here, they spend 2 days here, they just don't have a permanent solution waiting for them. So any area that someone can help in terms of housing, in terms of legal assistance, in terms of legal social services, that would be extremely, extremely helpful to that effect, while we will continue to discuss with our elected officials what best they can do. We had a hope that they could definitely pass a Haitian Migrant Act as well in Congress, like they did for the Afghans, for the Ukrainians. They could do the same thing. So up to now, we have Haitian families who were granted temporary protective status since 2021 apply for a work authorization cards, still have not received the work authorization cards. It's after 1 year. So you can understand the level of inequities that exist between us as Haitian, Black, and Brown families versus just other groups. So no hard feelings. We need to assist everyone. But to put this into perspective, to see that what happened, Haitians have been granted temporary protective status back in July 2021 and had applied for relief. We helped about 1,500 individuals back last year. Almost 60% of them have still not received the work authorization cards, allowing them to make this transition. So imagine that from the 4,500 more still basically need to be assisted, understand the scope of the situation so that everyone can play a part in this situation.
So I want to make sure, Church, you're hearing what the requests are quite clearly. There's a need for legal assistance. If you are a lawyer, if you are a paralegal, if you have any administrative experience in either of these fields, your experience is needed. If you are a social worker, if you have a background in counseling, your experience is needed. If you are a real estate agent, if you have commercial real estate available, your experience is needed. Donations are needed if you have financial resources that are available and can be made as a donation to Immigrant Family Services Institute. That is needed right now because cash is flexible. That allows people to be hired. And because even if you don't yet speak Haitian Creole, even if you don't speak Spanish, because some of these people do because of where they have come through, you can volunteer and there are people who can translate right now. Because the expertise in filling out some of those work forms, in some of the EBT forms, in some of the workplace assistance forms, that's what's needed. The translation can come, but we need people to help move through those forms. And then finally, the prayer is needed. We need prayer that these broken systems, because let's be clear in this, there are reasons why some stories are getting told and others are not. We want to be clear that as a council of churches, we have said clearly that some stories get told and others do not. And if we are to say that all are made in the image and likeness of God, all are worthy of having dreams, all are worthy of having a flourishing life abundant, then we need to make sure that all of the stories are told. And so part of the work that you can do, church, is to tell the story. Tell the stories that you've heard today from Pastor Florissant. Tell the stories you've heard from Reverend Baker and Reverend Newton and Reverend Young. Tell the stories that you've heard, because when you tell these stories, we share the gospel. We share the stories of miracles that are possible when we open our homes, when we open our checkbooks, when we open our cupboards. There are good stories to be told here and honest stories, because when we tell the truth, we set one another free. I'm so incredibly grateful for our colleagues. I wonder, as we depart from this place, but not one another, are there final things, Reverend Baker, Reverend Newton, Reverend Florissant, Reverend Young, that you want to say as we take leave from one another?
Let me just say thank you so much, Reverend Laura, Reverend Young, Reverend Baker, and Reverend Newton for sharing this space with us today. Thank you so much. I would ask for a special prayer for Dr. Joel Gabo, the Executive Director of Immigrant Family Services Institute. That woman, a mother, a leader, a community leader, always crying for help everywhere that she goes, couldn't even sleep. So for God to give her the strength to continue on, and the staff at Immigrant Family Services Institute serving almost 200 families on a weekly basis. So pray for us. Thank you.
Reverend Baker, what can we pray for you and your community?
Prayers for this whole region, so not just our island, but our friends and family and colleagues on the Cape, and for this particular group, that we, in our emerging consciousness raising, really understand the long journey that we're on, and that we not approach this for quick solutions and get impatient when there aren't quick solutions. We will keep working for solutions and for justice, but in the meantime, staying in deep and loving relationship with each other. So praying for endurance for our community and discernment.
Thank you. Reverend Newton, how can we pray for you and your people?
I would echo what Reverend Baker said, and also just prayers for amplification, that those of us who have been granted voices use them in the service of all who've been silenced, and that we seek to find ways to always keep our doors and hearts open through the language of compassion, through the experience of empathy, and not be shut down.
I'm grateful for that. And Reverend Young, for whom shall we pray in your community?
I think we just should pray for everyone in the Commonwealth and the leaders. I think this is a leadership in real time, right? Not just for pastors, but people in elected office. As we go into another election, big election year, we know that those who are seeking office will be around. I hope we'll be able to bend their ear to let them know that this is a problem. And we're here to help, but we also need to work together and collaborate with people who are in government, also with FBOs or faith-based organizations. I said this several times and I continue to say it. Faith-based organizations are really doing grassroots work. We're with the people. And a lot of our churches have been turned into health clinics, have been turned into community centers, have been turned into trauma centers. And we need the help in order for us to do the work that God has called us to do, especially if no one else is willing to do it. So that's my prayer.
Mm. Well, church, you've heard the prayers, you've heard the call, you've heard the stories. Jesus always sends us out 2 by 2. We never are called to do the work alone. So my incredible gratitude to my colleagues, especially to Reverend Bria Bellum, who has been in background and running the tech for this. We are so incredibly grateful. Reverend Young, would you offer the benediction as we go from this place?
Sure. God, we just want to tell you thank you for every colleague that's here and the places that they represent. I pray that you will continue to cover us and keep us. God, you know our heart's desire, and we know that you're able to meet our need. So God, guide us, give us that spirit of discernment, but also cover us and keep us. God, walk before us, pull down mountains that may be before us and pull up valleys. Allow us to walk on level ground. God, also walk alongside of us to be our friend. We love you and we praise you. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, church.